son will sit in front of a new game. He will just click everything and explore and discover and understand what's being done. For an older adult, there's the fear of pressing a button. They don't understand that anything that they press is fine to go back. It's the fear of exploring. And therefore, they will not explore.
Right.
So if it's not out there and it doesn't explain exactly what it does, it's not going to be pressed.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, and is sponsored by Leumi Tech, Hippo Insurance, Turing, Upwest Labs, and Hillel at Stanford. We all know there's a huge gap in the ability for elderly to leverage the use of technology that we use in our daily life. Meet Eitan Lavie, the co-founder and CEO of Zeppi. After a 2-year relocation to Canada, Eitan learned how hard it is to keep in touch and care for loved ones, especially when they have difficulties operating smartphones and tablets. That's why he developed Zeppi, a video call device that floats. It is the only zero-effort tech out there for older adults and people with impairments.
Eitan Lavie, thank you for joining me. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm very excited. It's a very big day for us. Very, very big day.
Well, you're working on a really important cause, so I'm excited to hear about what you're doing there with Zeppi. But you have a background of product management in quality systems, and really what I'm truly excited to hear from you is your personal journey, but also in the context of solving such a meaningful problem for elderly care. So tell me a little bit about yourself, and how do you find yourself diving into the industry of helping elderly connect with their loved ones?
My wife is a gynecologist, and 2.5 years ago she got accepted to a fellowship in Canada. So we moved the whole family over there, and I've got 3 kids. At the time, they were 2, 6, and 8. And my parents are back in Israel, so I actually found myself holding an iPad and chasing the kids around to try and create the experience for my parents, as if they're hanging out together. It was just... I could see how disappointed my mom was from the experience. And there was also the other side of my ability to show up at my parents' place to try and help them out. Sometimes in the little things, you know, that the light in the microwave is blinking. You can go nuts in trying to, hey, Mom, hold the phone, I can't see it, to try and troubleshoot. There are a lot of very funny movies about different use cases like that, how people lose it in 10 seconds. Mom! But also it goes to the bigger things, because sometimes you want to hear like a conversation with the doctor, or you want to see really what's going on. I'm lucky that my sister lives very close by, but still the feeling of remote family caregiving is something that is just horrendous. And because of my product management background, I immediately started to do the market research and to see what's going on out there. And that's where I discovered that this is a huge, before the COVID, huge problem of loneliness and isolation, and family caregivers that are chasing around. They're actually called the sandwich generation. They've got their own careers, own kids, and they're trying to help their parents, and it's just really, really hard. And I mean, the biggest problem behind it is that there's always some kind of technical difficulty on the older adult side, that will cause it to break down, and that's. I was just mapping out everything on the user experience and trying to see if I'm going to be able to solve it. And, my daughter got a Hello Kitty helium balloon for her birthday. And it was stuck in my living room for 2 months. It took like 10 days for it to lose a little bit of the helium. And there's the magical day where the balloon is exactly at equilibrium. So I'm sitting in the living room, and suddenly this thing is like floating in a hypnotizing kind of way in front of my eyes. And I'm like, oh wow, if I can put the iPad on that, that's going to be awesome. So that's kind of where Zeppi came into play.
So Zeppi is this, hands-free, floating, zero touch for elderly. But Eitan, I want to go back still to the pain point, because I'm feeling that pain point on a daily basis with my 2 aging grandparents. It's about the dexterity of clicking on the apps. It's about holding the and assimilating to that technology. But can you give me a little bit of a broader perspective as with background in product management, and you're user experience research. What is the phenomena that we're exploring here? Because I do think still that most people in the world still don't empathize with this big problem for the communication differences. You're saying that there's, all the time there's technical difficulties, but here we are, we have Zoom calls almost every day, all day, and very rarely we have significant technical difficulties. So why does it happen with elders more so than with the younger generation? And what types of things contribute to that gap in the ability to assimilate?
Well, the world is split into two. It's split into the people who are taking care of someone who has a certain level of impairment. It's not really about an older adult. You can't say, oh, my market is the 75 plus. That whole approach is passé. It's about people who are, for various reasons, it can be cognitive, it can be physical, it can be even psychological, that are basically not able to operate what is trivial for us. And if you have your grandparents and you can imagine trying to train them up, and I mean, with this COVID, a lot of people have done wonders in training up a lot of people who were not technical, but there's still, unfortunately, a huge portion of the of people who, no matter what, are not going to be able to operate it on their own without any local assistance. And it can be the smallest thing, like connecting the tablet to the charger. That can be a game over for somebody. It can It can be if you're there's some cool systems that you can actually hook up to your TV, but then you need to change the HDMI source. That's it, game over. Not going to work. If you're holding something in your hands, you need to coordinate and point it towards yourself. I mean, the classic examples are my kids asking, why are my parents' nose so big? Okay, because they're looking into the tablet and trying to see what's going on. Or why do they need to see my dad's hair in his ears because he's holding up the speaker like that because he wants to hear? So it's all these multiple little things. But you know what? We also, I've had a lot of work in user experience and then designing and identifying gaps. And I mean, we all have the Zoom lockdown. We're sitting in front of a device in a specific location. We're having conversations for business. It's okay, but how many of people on a daily basis are like having coffee together over Zoom with their parents? It's just not an experience that works. And if I were able to present a person's face, for example, in life size, that requires a 20-inch display. It means that we're right now about a foot and a half away from the display. But in a normal conversation, we're sitting around a coffee table, would be like 3-4 feet away. That's the normal distance. Why shouldn't I have that kind of a conversation? Why shouldn't I see a life-size display? Why shouldn't it be at eye level and exactly on top of the sofa or on the other side of the dining table where the person would be sitting down? It's just a different experience.
And I want to go back right before we go into the solution that you're providing here. Mm-hmm. I think that you said two things that really made me think. One was this idea of a game changer. Every person interacts differently with a device. Some people like the dark theme better. Some people are more productive when there's a do not disturb, right? I mean, there's a lot of these different tools that are provided for us so that we can enjoy the technology and assimilate to it better. Yeah. Yet what you're saying here is that there are these things for elderly, things like connecting the tablet to the charger, or even swiping, right? Maybe pressing some of the buttons on the touchpad or pressing the power button on the side, that could be just physical game changers because of accessibility issues. And, in the past 3-4 years, I've seen almost every company make efforts to become more accessible for those with some disabilities, whether they're hearing impaired or they have poor eyesight. Yet I don't see nearly enough accessibility for elderly in our day-to-day apps, and so it's as if they're just treating this population as if it doesn't matter, it doesn't exist. Yet we have a lot of other populations with disabilities that they're putting so much effort in. And I've been asking myself, why is that? Why do companies not provide solutions for the elderly? Do you think, is there an economic reason for this? Is it just that people still don't realize that there is this huge gap?
Well, I think that the realization has been coming into play in the last few years. There's a lot of talk around it, and what you can really see is that many products that have passed the threshold of the user experience have actually entered into the aging market. And they're the classic consumer products, a lot of the Apple various tablets, and a lot of, by the way, the smart home displays. A lot of voice activation is bypassing a lot of the different challenges. And the market is actually a monster because the baby boomers have already gone into their pension and now are getting to the later ages. And the baby boomers over the years have never taken anything for granted. They change the market as they go. Do you know that the actual average age of somebody of the people buying Harley Davidsons is 50 plus?
Wow.
From what I understand, the reason they did the three-wheelie is because many of their potential customers cannot hold the bike on its own. They need to sit on something.
Huh.
So it's the market has changed. They actually hold a lot of the money out there. So everybody's trying to target the aging, less the frail. The frail is it's harder. It's way harder. It's a harder acceptance by the end users. We're seeing it right now with a lot of study groups that we're doing to see what would be accepted, what would not be accepted. You need to provide value for the family caregiver. You need to provide value for the older adult. It needs to be accepted into the home. It's an example of psychological fear. Many of them are afraid to learn new tech because it kind of it puts them in the position where they feel that they're not in control.
I see that.
Mm-hmm.
That losing that lack of control and not really understanding intuitively what's happening. Sort of, I keep referring back to my grandparents a lot. Asked me, and used to ask me even more, to write the instructions for them on a piece of paper, right? What are the step-by-step guides for opening the Zoom or opening the WhatsApp? Yeah. And I was always thinking as a young kid, I kept saying, no, it has to be intuitive. It has to flow, because tomorrow it might change a little bit. You have to have that intuition on what to press, but I'm starting to understand more and more that intuition stems from just, day to day, 20 hours a day, just playing with it, and it's not necessarily something that can be expected.
That's exactly the point. The younger generation will play with. Okay, my son will sit in front of a new game. He will just click everything and explore and discover and understand what's being done. For an older adult, there's the fear of pressing a button. They don't understand that anything that they press is fine to go back. It's the fear of exploring. And therefore, they will not explore.
Right.
So if it's not out there and it doesn't explain exactly what it does, it's not going to be pressed. It's one of the big challenges. And what we're doing is basically we're saying two things. One, we need to have the option of passing everything that needs to be dealt with the tech to the family caregiver, meaning I will drive and move the device. I will bring up the volume or turn down the volume or the brightness. I'll take care of everything from remote. That's one piece of it. And the second is to put enough smarts and AI on it so we'll be able to do a lot of those things on its own. But
so Eitan, talk to me a little bit about what you're tangibly doing, because when I read the mission statement, we're creating this floating device that is to help you connect with your family. That sounds really, really cool. But tangibly, what is the product that Zeppi offers?
Well, Zeppi is a video call device that's basically installed on a helium balloon. And it's got small drone-like engines, and this thing actually knows how to move around and float in the house and project the life-size display onto the side of the balloon from the inside. So you can have a video call conversation with a screen that comes towards the user and not the other way around. If I want to call my dad, I just pick up my mobile phone, open the Zeppi app, I video call him, and this helium balloon comes out of a docking station, floats towards my dad, positions itself right in front of him, and we can have a conversation as close to me actually being there. That's what Zeppi is. As simple as that.
So 2 questions. Yep. One, does it work? And the second one is, I have to know more, and how can I buy one?
Well, I started with today's a very exciting day because we've built multiple prototypes to verify this thing can potentially work. But today is the actual first fully blown prototype that I'm about to see the video from my tech CTO genius. So it's a very, very exciting day.
Congratulations.
I mean, technically, sure, you can take like a huge 8-footer helium balloon and just pile everything on it and it will work. The challenge is how do you reduce the weight, because on average about 1 gram of helium requires 1 liter of gas. Okay, this mobile phone is 180 grams. It's 180 liters to pick this up. Okay, that's a big balloon. So we need to see that we can reduce the weights, put on everything that's required for a video call, as in camera, speakers, microphone, display. Everything that needs to be done in order to fly it around like a mini drone kit with all the controls, and piece it all together, put it in a helium balloon. And yes, it's feasible. It's very feasible. Not trivial, but feasible.
Can you go back and walk me through some of the journey that you've done as the entrepreneur? How do you converge to this idea that you want a floating helium balloon, which to me, it sounds, I'm 24 and I'm techie and it sounds like sci-fi to me. Why floating? Why helium? How do you converge to that strategy?
Well, it was actually the other way around because, you always have to follow the pain. When I was trying to now identify, well, how can I solve and bring to zero the technical requirements of the older adult? And the helium balloon idea came up and it was like, oh, that is so far-fetched. There has to be a better way. What about a display arm? What about a robot? What about projecting in different walls? And I was actually trying to find any and every other way of not doing it with helium, because helium has its challenges. It's a tricky molecule. You need to have like a refill cartridge on your docking station. It's not a trivial thing to deal with, but I could not find anything that will be able to provide the same user experience and actually bring all the technical frictions to zero. I couldn't find anything. It was the only way to bring the screen to the user. It's either that or telepresence robots, those kind of iPad on a stick on an iRobot moving on the floor.
Right.
But those things have a lot of challenges with them and pretty pricey, and I wouldn't put one in my home. I tested, tried.
So where is this in 5-10 years? What do you see is this in every household? How do you see, Zep integrating into the society within 5-10 years?
That's a great question. Well, I'm starting with the older adults because I think that's not just a nice to have, it's a must have. And that's why I was saying I'm following the pain. But I believe that once people see and feel the user experience as exceptionally different, I think that it's going to actually go into many, many homes. And then you can see the additional layers of services. I mean, it's just a dynamic smart home display. So if I'm asking Alexa to see a recipe for something to cook, I'd love to be cooking and have the display floating next to me. So it can go way further beyond that. But I will say that I've been in multiple startups, and I'm at my 45-ish, actually the ideal age to successfully launch a startup statistically. But I found that I need to feel that I'm doing something that has actually not just money behind it, but core values that
Yes.
One of the startups that I was looking at before has also huge potential, but I found myself sending coupons to people when I was experimenting. And I was like, is this what I want to tell my grandkids that I brought to the world? I jumped it for that reason. I know it's business-wise, you can talk about it, but you need to wake up in the morning. It's kind of funny. In our discussions with the co-founders, we talked a lot about core values and integrity, and one of the things is what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And I basically said,
I love that.
Well, I said in 10 years, I want to be completely economically independent. And I want to choose to wake up every morning and go to the Zeppi office.
I love that. I love that. Eitan, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate you spending this time. So before we leave, I have to ask you the most important question, which is 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Well, people, integrity, and passion.
I love that. Eitan, thank you very, very much. Best of luck. I want to hear from you as soon as I can buy the very first working prototype, because we need it desperately. And I know about 1 million other people that do as well. So thank you for working so diligently to make the world better. And stay safe and stay healthy.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.